What's up, y'all? Thank you for checking out the Hospitality Strategy Lab. My name is Jason Littrell, and today I want to talk about kind of merging the old with the new. So I'm reading a book called The 48 Laws of Power, and the 45th law has a lot to do with connecting the old with the new. So I just wanted to share kind of some context in exactly what's happening in the future of hospitality management versus what's happened historically. So the best bars and restaurants have always thrived on relationships, on consistency, on reputation, but none of that has changed. That's exactly still how people buy stuff, how people decide which restaurants they're going to go to. But the way we deliver it has changed considerably. So, and the question is how do we bring the best of the past into the future without losing what made it so special? And so I want to start with the timeless foundations of great hospitality. So it's always been about human connections. There's nothing that I could ever do. I mean, not that I would ever want to, but it's like there's nothing that I would do to remove the human connection. That's why I go to bars. That's why everybody goes to bars. So whether it's a bartender remembering your drink, or a concierge or maitre d knowing your name, great hospitality is about making people feel seen and valued. It's how you make people feel that makes them want to come back. And so what is it about the legendary places like PJ Clarke's or even like these tiny little dive bars that are down the street? What makes them stand out? And their reputations were typically built on word of mouth. Also, the personal relationships typically between a bartender and a guest, oftentimes a server. I mean, when I was a server, my big thing was that I would just remember big orders and people would come back just to see me do that. And then also just consistent experiences. So regulars were cultivated organically and loyalty was earned through trust, not gimmicks or technology. Now, the greatest hospitality operators were already system builders. They already had the system. It was just kind of built in one's mind. But those were days before, limitless distractions, and I think that we had a little bit more of a attention span before that. So the greatest hospitality operators were already system builders, and the best bars and restaurants ran on routines, habits, and structured processes, just without the technology. I mean, even digitized POS systems kind of grew up in my era of bars and restaurants. The first bars and restaurants I worked at had manual cash registers, and it was just like we had to know the price of drinks, and we didn't even take credit cards half the time. It wasn't until the early aughts to the late aughts that we started to see like digital POS systems. And I remember the first time I learned Micros, I was like, what is this? And so I had to use Micros, and it was just like built for stadiums, and it just didn't make any sense. But that was kind of when, the late 2000s was when I started getting trained on this stuff. But it's if you look at like late 1800s Paris, they kept detailed notes on their most famous clientele. To personalize the service long before CRMs. And if you don't know what a CRM is, it's customer relationship management. It's the thing that reminds you and keeps you aware of what the people are, of who the people are that go into your place. So let's talk about the traditional tools of customer loyalty. There is the OG CRM, is the notebook method. That's like in classic bars or restaurants, owners would literally keep a physical guest book with key details about regulars, what they drank, how often they drank, who they came with, how they dressed, how they like to be served. An example of this is Harry's Bar in Venice. In 1931, they had a book that tracked the VIPs, ensuring that they always felt at home, that they were addressed by name. And then they also had the same people that worked there as maitre d's and people that just knew everybody. They were connectors. And I was actually talking to a guy that lives in my building, Cliff. He is kind of fills this role for a classic old school New York steakhouse now, and they don't use any of this stuff. They don't need any of this stuff because it's not on brand. But what I'm going to get to is how this stuff kind of really helps you out if you don't have the resources to do all that kind of stuff. So let's talk about the art of the handshake. So before digital memberships and point systems, loyalty was about personal gestures, and a free round, a reserved table, an inside joke. Those were the currency, and this built emotional loyalty, which was far more powerful than transactional rewards. Another thing that was part of this like kind of insiders club was this built-in emotional loyalty And that, like, there's just like rituals and exclusivity that have always driven engagement. This is what makes the Keen's Steakhouse is, it's like you always like the tradition of it, the exclusivity, the ritual of it, of getting your steak chopped up on at your table. That's like kind of the ritual. But PDRs, private dining rooms, the regulars table, and secret menus created a sense of belonging. Like, as in knowing what the one thing that you have to have there is. Like, you have to have their martini, their Manhattan, because they make the best of the city. And, you know, honestly, it wasn't always the best in the city, but believing that it was gave you something that you could talk about to your friends, and it made you appear that you knew what you're talking about, which is a key driver in why people buy stuff in general, which is status. So just an example of this, like in historical context, is the Stammstich, Stammtisch. I don't know how to say it, but it's in German beer culture. Like in the big beer halls, there would be like specific seats that were reserved for the people that were regulars, that were not the tourists that the staff knew by name, and they had a special reserve table only for the most loyal patrons, fostering a kind of like a club-like experience where they were just kind of like you know, in this private club. So what has changed? The tools have changed, the technology has changed, but not the philosophy. So the core principles of hospitality haven't changed, only the way that we deliver them, only the medium. So we still remember regulars, we still reward loyalty, and we still build community. It just happens through different tools, and there's a different psychology with the staff. There's a different motivation with staff. It's not about money. It's not as much about money as it is about like how we connect this workplace with what their professional goals are, which, you know, for a bright shining beacon, for a bright shining moment, was the intention was to be a professional bartender, but I think that time is gone. For instance, instead of pursuing a traditional career and a job, I was like, I wanted to be a bartender, and I just wanted to be a bartender. So the core principles haven't changed, just the way that we do it. It just happens. We just need tools to do it now, because people have different expectations, and the consumer has changed considerably. So reputation management has gone digital. So instead of a bar's reputation being spread by word of mouth at the local barbershop, it's now built through Google reviews, Instagram, Yelp, and, you know, TripAdvisor and numerous other sites. So 94% of diners say that online reviews impact their decisions. So, and I believe it. You know, most of the time people are going to investigate a choice that they made if they haven't been there before. And so this is where the world that I live in is helping people make the decision that's best for them. And if you're my client, then they're going to choose you more often than not. So another thing that's changed is that personalized service has scaled, and it has to scale because people eat out a lot. They have immeasurable number of choices. Even if you live on small town Main Street America, like, they have more choices than they've ever had before. And so in the past, the bartender would remember the regulars, like they would remember the people that came in, and because they were professional bartenders, they worked there 5 or 6 nights a week, and that was their job. That was just what they did. Right now, it's back to the days where, at least in New York where I live, where a lot of people, they do the job at night because they're doing something else during the day. That used to be like one of the famous like things that bartenders would make bartenders cringe, was be like, "What's your day job?" And I would be like, "This is my day job," and screw you for asking me, in that condescending way. But now it's kind of like kind of veering back towards this is my job while I'm looking for something else to do, or while I'm pursuing my arts or whatever. So. You know, so while personalized service is scaled, smarter systems are now ensuring that every guest feels like a member of the club, even in a high volume setting, even with transient staff. And that's like the main difference. It's not because we're trying to take over that experience. It's because we're trying to adapt to the current consumer psychology. Let's talk about another thing. So the thing that I focus on with my business is creating the modern equivalent of old school hospitality. And so the principle of perfect timing still 100% exists. It's still very much a very, very important and relevant thing. So before, great bartenders knew how to pour a free drink or invite a guest back. These were perks or rewards or whatever it is. Now that bars and restaurants can send a perfectly timed message to re-engage guests who haven't been back in a while, let's say 30 days, 45 days, 90 days, whatever it is. And so also now reputation, even 10 years ago, Google Maps and Google reviews were completely irrelevant. Now it's basically everything. If you have consistent negative reviews in your restaurant, you're going to go out of business, and try explaining that to your investors. That's going to be a difficult conversation, especially if your investors are your parents or your siblings or something like that. So reputation building is just as critical. But in the past, a bar's reputation spread through conversations and social circles, and it still does that, by the way. But now a single bad review. But now we trust people that we don't know. So now a single bad review or viral tweet can sink a business overnight. So the best operators today are actively managing their online presence, just like old school bar owners manage their neighborhood reputation, like as in what people in front of them said. Now it matters what somebody that you don't even know says on the internet. And that's a huge, businesses closed just because of that. Life savings are drained. So you have a business partner in Google. Sorry. So loyalty programs have replaced the regulars perk, right? So I remember back in the old days, we would, if you buy a round, if you're bringing a couple friends, and we'll buy you a round, buy you a shot, whatever it is. And it was just all in our heads. And that was just the way we did business. So the bartender just knew. Today, data helps us recreate the experience at scale. It does seem a little bit more transactional, but there's still a surprise and delight there, especially when there is, something that's unexpected that happens. So for an example, we have exclusive VIP lists that are text-based invitations, and rewards that mimic personal gestures rather than feeling like generic discounts. So we address people by name, we keep track of redemptions and that kind of stuff like that. But we want to make sure that it is a surprise. It's a surprise, and that there's a surprise and delight element there. All right. So the last thing I want to talk about, So one more thing I want to talk about is the lessons from the past for the future of hospitality. So we don't like to over automate. We like to make sure that there is a human touch. And the AI has been really instrumental with this, to be able to have this many conversations at scale, because we tell the AI how to talk. And we even give samples of writing so that the AI knows how we like to communicate with people, so that we're on brand all the time. So the best hospitality feels natural and personal, not robotic. And so technology should be used to enhance human interaction, but not replace it. An example of this would be automated check-ins should be followed up with real human recognition, not just a QR code. So people hate QR codes. I found this out. People hate QR codes, and QR codes are rapidly on the decline. We're not going to use them any more than we have to, except for things like unbagging experiences and stuff. So exclusivity and rituals still work, just in new forms. So the old way would be like a secret table at a jazz bar for VIPs, or something like that, which is, again, still works. But a new way would be digital memberships that unlock perks, but still feel personal and also limited. So we're trying to give people more of what they like, but also we're trying to get people to do something, in a sea of other people that are trying to get them to do something. But again, this is the difference between success and failure for most bars, especially when 8 out of 10 go out of business. It's come on, guys, there has to be an intervention here. So consistency is key no matter what era it is. So if we're talking about 50 years ago, 100 years ago in the history of restaurants versus today, consistency is still one of the most important factors in helping people decide whether they want to enjoy your company or not. So the best operators in history succeeded because they were relentlessly consistent. They delivered the exact same experience every single time. So today, that means ensuring every guest experience, whether online or in person or through a loyalty program, feels intentional and seamless. Now, notice I said before and after. So the expectation now is that the experience before is consistent with the experience after, which is consistent with the experience during. So there's 3 distinct segments of the experience, whereas before in the old days, even 10-15 years ago, there was just the during experience, It was like people would be much more willing to roll the dice on a place that they've never been, to see if they liked it or not. But now there has to be an experience before, as in a review. They have to see, like, they're going to investigate the reviews. They're going to see what other people say about you. They're going to see what your branding is like. They're going to see what their friends said about you. And then you have to reinforce that with the experience that they had in the restaurant. And then you have to deliver an experience after that nurtures them and entices them to come back in for more, because they're going to forget, because there's 100 other restaurants that are vying for their attention. All right. So just to kind of wrap this up a little bit. So the future of hospitality is a blend of old and new. And if you think that adding AI and automation is going to sacrifice that, you're high. You don't want, that mindset is a very limited mindset, because what we've been doing for the last 10 or 15 years, especially with the Amazon culture, like with the right now individual me culture, is everybody is expecting personalized experiences, and they want something that's way over the top all the time. And more often than not, you're unable to deliver that experience without some help. So the best operators are not afraid of technology. That's why you see Fridays, Domino's, etc., investing tens of millions into this stuff, because it is the future of the psychology of buying. And the good news is since software as a service, and more recently AI is out, then the playing field is leveled considerably. So reputation, relationships, and consistency still are going to define your success. Only now they can happen at scale, and they can happen without paying a full-time employee for this. So the challenge isn't whether to embrace the new, it's how to keep it feeling timeless. So at the end of the day, great hospitality is still about the same things it always was: making people feel special, remembered, and part of something bigger, part of your story. The only difference now is that the tools that we use to make it happen. This has been the Hospitality Strategy Lab. My name is Jason Littrell, and I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.